A corporation bought the rain. First storm sold out in 7 minutes. That was how the feeds described it later, with the clean language of markets trying to sound like weather. Not a storm, not a season, a delivery event. At 9:00 a.m. Pacific, the city of San Paloma opened bidding for 42 minutes of medium-density rainfall over its eastern reservoirs. By 9:07, every municipal water authority in 3 states had tried to buy in. By 9:11, the corporate spokesperson appeared beneath a blue glass logo and explained that demand had exceeded atmospheric availability. Mara then watched the announcement from the back of a county maintenance truck parked beside a dead canal. The canal had once cut through almond country like a wound full of sky. Now its concrete bed held bottle caps, bleached tumbleweed, and the cracked bodies of fish that had died 2 droughts ago. Above it, the air looked almost wet. But that was the trick heat played when it wanted to be cruel. On her tablet, the spokesperson smiled. "Aquascript remains committed to equitable access," he said. "Our light moisture package continues to provide essential atmospheric support to qualifying regions." Mara looked at the canal. There was a chalk line painted along the wall 5 feet above her head, marking the old water level. Someone had written under it in spray paint, "Remember when the sky was free." The truck radio crackled. "Ven, you seeing this?" Her partner, Leon Pike, was 3 miles north at Pump Station 14, where the county's last subscription misting towers coughed vapor over a field of government corn. The corn was not meant to feed anyone. It existed to keep the soil from leaving. "I'm seeing it," Mara said. "They bumped us again. Premium season went to Phoenix Arcology. We get 12% humidity and a chance of decorative drizzle." Decorative, that's what the contract says. Mara laughed once, because not laughing would have made her open the truck door and throw the tablet into the canal. 10 years earlier, she had been a meteorologist at the National Weather Service, back when the service still pretended weather belonged to the public. She had mapped monsoons, hurricane bands, pressure ridges moving like invisible mountains. She had loved the blunt honesty of the atmosphere. It did not care who you voted for. It did not check credit scores. It rose, cooled, condensed, fell. Then came the black summer, the inland firestorms, the crop collapses. The year Lake Mead became a tourist crater. Aquascript arrived with aircraft, satellites, ion towers, and a promise no public agency could match. "We can make rain arrive where it is needed." At first they did. They saved farms, they filled reservoirs, they stabilized cities that had been 2 weeks from evacuation. Mara had stood in a schoolyard with children who had never felt rain on their faces, watching them lift their mouths to the sky as if the world had forgiven them. Then Aquascript patented predictive rainfall delivery. After that, rain became a licensed event. After that, the sky had tears. The county office was a converted library with the books removed. Shelves that had once held history now held emergency filters, ration cards, and sealed jars of soil samples labeled by year. The children's reading room had become water appeals. The old reference desk was where residents came to beg for weather. Mara hated that phrase, but it was accurate. Weather requests opened every Tuesday at noon. Ranchers, school districts, tribal councils, hospital farms, and towns too small to trend all logged into Aquascript's civic portal and selected from the packages they could afford: light moisture, root zone preservation, reservoir recovery, full seasonal reconstruction. The names sounded medical, the prices sounded like ransom. At 11:58, the appeals room was already full. A mother with 2 boys held a folder of pediatric asthma records. An old cattleman stared at his boots. 3 members of the Red Mesa Council sat silent under a ceiling fan that did not move enough air to matter. Mara stood beside the main screen while County Commissioner Hale tried to keep his voice level. "We have funds for 1 root zone block," Hale said. "Maybe 2 if the hospital cooperative releases reserve credits." "Red Mesa has senior housing without evaporative cooling," said Councilwoman Yazzie. "The hospital farm feeds the dialysis center," said Dr. Nayar. "My citrus grove dies this week," said the cattleman who had sold his herd and planted trees because the old drought plan told him to. No one looked at Mara, which was worse than blame. They looked at the screen. The screen was where rain lived now. At noon, the portal opened. Hale selected the county's coordinates: population vulnerability index, soil stress data, heat forecast, and emergency justification. He clicked submit. The wheels spun. Outside the window, the sky was a blank, expensive blue. The screen refreshed. Request downgraded. Approved package, light moisture 0. 7 millimeters equivalent, atmospheric dispersal window 03, 10-03, 18. The room made a sound like everyone had inhaled at once and forgotten how to stop. 8 minutes, Dr. Nayar said. At 3 in the morning, Yazzie asked. Hale's mouth opened, closed. The old cattleman removed his cap. Mara stared at the allocation map in the corner of the screen. Across the continent, premium delivery zones glowed deep blue. Phoenix Arcology, Denver Heights, the private vineyards above Old Napa. A luxury desalination district on the coast that bought rain for its rooftop forests because guests liked the smell. Then she saw something strange. A gray line moved under the allocation layer. Thin, almost hidden, it drifted east from the Pacific, crossed the mountains, and bent south away from the county. Mara leaned closer. Natural convective band, the old data label read. The words appeared for less than a second before AquaScript's interface covered them with a subscription overlay. Mara's pulse changed. She had not seen that label in 6 years. Natural rain was not illegal. That was what AquaScript said in hearings whenever senators needed to look angry for cameras. The company did not own the sky. It only optimized atmospheric delivery. It did not prevent natural precipitation. It merely reduced uncertainty for participating regions. Mara had helped write the first public guidelines before she resigned. Back then, the system was supposed to assist the climate, not replace it. That night, she went home to a bungalow cooled by reflective paint and stubbornness. Her house sat at the edge of town, where subdivisions had been planned before water became a question investors asked first. Half the lots were empty foundations now. The other half held people too broke or too loyal to leave. Mara waited until the grid entered low-demand mode. Then she opened the closet in her spare room and pulled down a plastic storage bin full of things the new weather did not need. Paper maps, storm notebooks, radios, a brass rain gauge from her father. At the bottom was a hard drive wrapped in foil. Leon called as she connected it to an air-gapped laptop. "Tell me you're not doing what I think you're doing," he said. "I'm looking at public weather history." Mara. Public weather history should not require a lawyer. AquaScript flags unauthorized comparison models. Then I won't authorize them. He was quiet long enough for her to hear the wind push dust against the windows. "What did you see?" he asked. "A natural convective band. Those don't reach us anymore." "That's what I thought." She loaded old satellite feeds, university archives, river basin sensors that still pinged out of habit. Most were degraded, delayed, or intentionally blurred under atmospheric security rules, but weather left fingerprints. Pressure did not lie easily. Heat signatures crossed borders. Wind shear wrote its own confession. By 2:00 a.m., Mara had reconstructed the hidden band. It had formed naturally over the Pacific. It had been strong enough to reach the inland valleys. Without interference, it would have delivered 2 inches of rain across 6 counties. Instead, AquaScript's ion towers had nudged it north, lifted it over the mountains, cooled it, split it, and sold the cleanest half to Phoenix Arcology as a premium storm. The county had not been skipped by climate. It had been outbid. Mara sat very still. On the laptop, the old map showed a ghost storm passing over her town without touching it. Then a file appeared in the reconstruction cache. It should not have been there. A system artifact maybe, a routing receipt. Mara opened it. There were thousands of entries. Natural formations captured and reassigned. Monsoon fragments redirected to private reservoirs. Snowpack potential converted into executive climate credits. Atmospheric rivers softened before they crossed poor regions, then rebuilt over subscribers with higher yield scores. At the top of the receipt was a phrase she had only heard in investor rumors. Organic Precipitation Suppression Index. Mara whispered, "You didn't make the rain." The laptop fan hummed, "You found a way to steal it." Leon arrived before sunrise with coffee and a look on his face that said he had already decided to help and hated himself for it. They spread the evidence across Mara's kitchen table. Maps, routing receipts, pressure anomalies, delivery invoices, suppression indexes. Outside, the county's approved light moisture package arrived at 3:10 exactly. For 8 minutes the air became damp enough to smell like concrete. No drops fell. At 3:18 the package ended. "We take it to the press," Leon said. "AquaScript owns most of the weather desks. Federal court. They'll seal it under infrastructure security." "Then what?" Mara zoomed in on the routing receipt. "The grid has a public safety failsafe." Leon stared at her. "No, every tower can enter emergency release if the model detects lethal atmospheric hoarding. That failsafe is theoretical. It's still in the architecture. Because you designed it." Mara did not answer. The early version of AquaScript had been built by public scientists, people like her. people terrified by dead crops and burning towns. They had added a last resort function in case any operator ever used the system to deny rain during mass casualty risk. Back then they had imagined dictators. They had not imagined quarterly earnings. Leon walked to the sink and turned the tap. It coughed once before water came out. If you trigger that fail-safe, what happens? The grid releases control priority. Natural systems reassert. Meaning, suppressed bands go where pressure takes them. Stored moisture dumps out of artificial holding patterns. Rivers of air stop obeying invoices. Floods, maybe. How bad? Mara looked at the map. That was the problem. The planet had been managed too long. For 6 years, monsoons had been delayed, split, softened, redirected. Soil had hardened under false schedules. Riverbeds had become housing. Emergency planners had built their calendars around purchased weather. Return the rain and the sky might not remember how to be gentle. Bad, she said. Leon rubbed both hands over his face. So the choice is subscription drought or uncontrolled flood. No, Mara said. Though she wanted the sentence to be true before she finished it, the choice is whether anyone gets to know that's the choice. Aquascript's Western Control Campus sat in the hills above the old coast, behind eucalyptus, drones, and a decorative waterfall that ran all day. Mara got in because her original credentials still existed in a legacy contractor database, misspelled and forgotten. Leon got in by wearing a delivery uniform and carrying a crate of replacement humidity sensors. Neither of them spoke during the security scan. Inside, the campus smelled like rain. That was the first obscenity. The lobby had moss walls. The ceiling released a fine mist every few minutes. Executives crossed polished stone floors under artificial thunder. On a display wall, children in sponsored villages smiled beneath company-branded clouds. Mara and Leon moved through a service corridor toward the archive core where old model logs were kept for compliance audits no regulator had the budget to perform. They almost made it, at the last door. A woman in a white suit stepped from the glass elevator. Dr. Venn, she said, I've been wondering when you would come back. Mara knew her from hearings. Selene Marr, Aquascript's chief climate economist, the woman who had once told Congress that free weather was an unmanaged risk pool. Leon shifted beside the sensor crate. Marr smiled at him. Mr. Pike can relax. If we wanted you arrested, you would already be learning how dry federal detention can be. You redirected natural rain, Mara said. We stabilized precipitation. You sold what would have fallen anyway. Would have fallen where? On depleted soil, into flood channels no one maintained, across regions with no storage. Natural rain is not justice, Dr. Venn. It is randomness with good branding. Mara felt the sentence strike because part of it was true. Marr touched the wall display. A map opened, drought zones, flood zones, crop dependencies, heat mortality forecasts. Without Aquascript routing, the projection turned red in places Mara loved and places she had never seen. You think we stole the rain, Marr said. We taught it triage. Triage doesn't require a premium tier. No, infrastructure does, litigation does, satellites do, maintenance does. The public wanted miracles until invoices arrived. You suppressed storms over poor regions. We prevented mass casualty flooding in regions no longer prepared for historical rainfall. Then why hide natural formations? For the first time, Marr's smile thinned, because hope is harder to manage than scarcity. Leon whispered, Mara. Security drones turned into the corridor behind them. Marr looked almost sad. You found the fail-safe. Mara's hand closed around the drive in her pocket. Don't activate it, Marr said. Not unless you're ready to kill people with the truth. They ran. Leon threw the crate into the first drone. Mara slammed her shoulder through an emergency door and came out into a courtyard where rain fell in perfect vertical lines from hidden nozzles. For one wild second, she smelled wet leaves and almost forgot it was fake. Then alarms cut through the thunder soundtrack. They reached Leon's truck with a cracked mirror and a bullet-shaped dent in the tailgate that neither of them had time to admire. By noon, they were in the abandoned flood control station under San Paloma, where old concrete tunnels led toward the dry river. Mara connected the drive to a municipal terminal older than Aquascript's ownership of the sky. The failsafe prompt appeared in plain text. Emergency release authority. Evidence of lethal atmospheric hoarding required. Upload proof. Mara uploaded everything. The system took 12 minutes to verify. During those 12 minutes, the world outside continued as if the sky were not on trial. Children walked to heat shelters. Farmers checked dead sensors. Phoenix Arcology posted a video of rain striking its rooftop forest while residents applauded from behind glass. The terminal chimed. Threshold met. Release available. Leon leaned against the wall. His shirt was dark with sweat. If you do this, can you control it? No. Can anyone? Mara thought of Mars' map, the red zones, the hardened riverbeds, the houses built where floodplains had waited patiently under new names. Not completely. Then maybe we leak the proof first. They'll bury it. Maybe not. Maybe is what they sell us. He flinched, not because she was wrong, but because she sounded like someone standing too close to a ledge. Mara looked at the terminal. Her father had taught her to read clouds from a porch in Kansas. He used to say rain was a conversation between heat and patience. Nothing in his life had prepared him for a world where that conversation had a billing department. Her finger hovered over the release key. Then the old emergency radio on the wall crackled. At first, Mara thought it was interference. Then a woman's voice came through, thin and terrified. "This is Red Mesa Senior Housing. We have no cooling, 2 residents down. We were told moisture support was denied. If anyone can hear this, please respond." Leon closed his eyes. The terminal waited. Outside, the sky remained clear. Mara did not press the key. She changed the target. The failsafe had been designed for a total release because public scientists had trusted emergencies to be simple. Mara no longer had that luxury. She opened the architecture beneath the prompt and found the old command layer buried under corporate controls. "What are you doing?" Leon asked. "Not freeing the whole sky. Can you do that?" "No idea." She carved a narrower instruction through the emergency logic. Release suppressed natural bands first to regions with lethal heat risk, dry reservoirs, and existing flood capacity. Block premium rerouting. Publish every routing receipt. Force all towers into public audit mode. The system resisted. Corporate priority code tried to reassert. Mara fed it its own evidence. Every denied county, every purchased season, every hidden storm. Mara appeared on the terminal's emergency video channel. "Dr. Venn," she said, breathless now. "Stop. Open the public logs. You are destabilizing a continental system. You already did. If those bands collide over the basin, San Paloma floods, then issue a warning. We can't without admitting why." Mara looked at her. "That's your problem." She executed the modified release. For 3 seconds nothing happened, then every screen in the flood station filled with blue. Across the west, towers shifted out of private priority. Moisture banks unlocked. Suppressed storm paths reappeared on public maps like veins under skin. Phones screamed emergency alerts from San Paloma to Red Mesa to Phoenix Arcology. Natural precipitation release in progress. Seek flood-safe elevation. All rainfall routing logs public. Leon laughed once, almost a sob. "You just made weather trend." The first thunder arrived 20 minutes later. It did not sound like the lobby thunder at Aquascript. It rolled unevenly, huge and imperfect, dragging itself over the mountains. Wind moved through the dry river channel. Dust lifted. People came out of houses, offices, shelters, barns. Mara climbed the flood station stairs and stood in the street. The first drop hit the pavement in front of her. It left a dark circle the size of a coin, then another, then thousands. For a moment, everyone simply watched. Rain struck roofs, solar panels, dead lawns, satellite dishes, abandoned swimming pools, the county office, the spray-painted canal wall. Children screamed. Adults stood with their mouths open. Somewhere, someone began to cry like they had been waiting years for permission. Then the emergency sirens started. The flood came at dusk, not everywhere. Not the apocalypse Mara had promised, not the gentle justice Mara had wanted. Something in between, which was where consequences usually lived. The dry river filled too fast. 2 trailer parks evacuated late. A bridge south of town failed under debris. Red Mesa got enough rain to cool the senior housing and too much for the lower road. Phoenix Arcology lost half its rooftop forest when unpurchased hail shattered the glass. By midnight, every Aquascript routing receipt was public. By morning, 3 governors had declared emergencies and 4 had declared investigations. Aquascript's stock collapsed, recovered, collapsed again. The company called Mara a climate terrorist. Half the country called her worse. The other half sent photos of rain gauges. Mara did not become a hero. That would have been too simple, and the weather had stopped being simple a long time ago. She spent the next week in shelters, helping people read flood maps. Leon organized pump crews. Councilwoman Yazzie gave interviews beside a washed-out road and refused to let reporters make suffering compete with justice. "We needed the rain," she said. "We also needed the warning. Remember both." On the 7th day, Mara returned to the canal. Water moved through it, not much. Brown, restless, carrying sticks and plastic and the smell of opened earth. But it moved. The spray-painted question was half submerged now. "Remember when the sky was free?" Mara stood above it with her father's brass rain gauge in one hand and an arrest warrant waiting somewhere in the system. Her tablet chimed. A new public forecast loaded, built from unlocked data and emergency volunteers and old weather service models waking like seeds after fire. No one owned it yet. That did not mean no one would try. Clouds gathered west of the valley. Real clouds, ugly and uneven and unsponsored. The forecast could not promise where they would go. It could only show what the pressure suggested, what the heat invited, what the land might bear. Mara looked at the moving sky and felt, for the first time in years, not certainty but weather. It was dangerous. It was not fair. It belonged to everyone again, which meant everyone would have to learn how to live under it. The first free forecast ended with a line no corporate system would have written. Chance of rain, unknown. Responsibility, widespread.